Hello, this is Michelle Grimolia, the president and CEO here at Woodland Pond at New Paltz. This is my weekly address for Tuesday, and today is Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. I have a number of things to talk about today in really no particular order, but I think I'll start with one of the more timely updates. So we are in the last couple of days here to have residents and staff bring in to our free store any items from your home, from your storage cage, or from wherever that you'd like to donate to our employee free store. So for those that are not familiar, this is something that we started doing a couple of times a year around the holidays. I realized I have stuff that I don't need anymore, but someone else might really want. This big, huge turkey platter that I thought that I was going to use doesn't get used anymore. Pots and pans that are taking up space. We bring those things in and essentially let the staff, browse those items and take them home at no cost. So sort of like a yard sale, but with no money being exchanged. It's really a great way to find new homes for the items in our own homes that we don't need anymore. So if you don't have anything going on today or tomorrow and you're looking for something to do, and you know that there's always this, one suitcase that you have to move that you haven't used in 100 years, or you've got stuff in your storage cage that's just more of a nuisance, and you know that your children aren't going to want those things, or they've already said, let's find a place to donate that to. You've got an opportunity right here at the community. You can bring any items that you'd like to donate to the free store down to concierge, to the art studio where the free store will be held, or if it's a large item or you need assistance with that, please do contact concierge and we can send someone up to help you. It's a great way to declutter, and I can tell you that the staff are so appreciative of the items. Many of them are just starting out. This is a great way for them to establish some semblance of a beautiful home with gently used items from our own homes or your home. So thank you very much for that if you'd like to make a donation to the free store. Yesterday, I sent out a memo about COVID uptick in skilled nursing. I'll just give you an update to that. We continue to see very asymptomatic or very mildly symptomatic residents among the handful that we have that have tested positive. We have not had any new positives since yesterday. We have no staff that we are suspect or know are positive at all on campus. We have no suspected cases of COVID in assisted living, garden view, or independent living. So we're holding steady to yesterday. And again, the symptomology of the residents that are positive right now is somewhere between mild and maybe just below moderate. I believe all of them have taken an antiviral at this point, whether it be Paxlovid or Remdesivir, and that seems to be helping. As I said in my memo yesterday, nearly 100% of the residents in the health center are completely vaccinated and boosted. In independent living, the vast majority of folks are fully vaccinated and boosted. So all of these things combined should help in the case that you do test positive for COVID. It is not unusual that we would see illness arise or rise up after the holidays. We want people to continue to visit and to be joyful with their families and friends. This should not be an impediment to that. If you do have compromised health, or you are around someone that you have, has tested positive for COVID or is some sort of a known exposure, you can let any nurse on campus know. We can help you to keep an eye on your symptoms, test you if you'd like to be tested, and we can provide you any guidance that you have on that. Also, as I said in my memo yesterday, it's not going to be unusual or unexpected for us to see folks see an uptick in common colds, influenza, RSV, which is a respiratory virus that is, as I said in my memo, getting a lot of airtime right now. It actually was first identified in the 1950s, so it's not a new virus, but it does seem to be affecting folks, especially the youngest children, and then in many cases seniors. And it's somewhat being attributed to folks having an immune system that's suppressed, because for so long during COVID, we isolated and our immune systems might have backtracked a little bit. So not a new virus, but definitely impacting people. So we just need to keep an overall general, look on our health, make sure that we're engaging in healthy habits, not, exposing ourselves to people that have symptoms of illness. And if you do have any symptoms of any illness at all, please do contact any nurse on campus and we can help you figure that out. Sarah has asked me to report and remind on the grief support group that we will be offering in conjunction with hospice. So hospice will be holding a grief support group here at Woodland Pond. According to the flyer, this is an 8-session group that is designed to help participants move through the grieving process that occurs as the result of a death of a loved one. This group will meet twice a month on Mondays, starting December 5th. We will need you to sign up with Concierge for that, and there is a registration process that Concierge will explain to you. Space is limited because this is a group setting, but we are hoping that anyone that is contending with any kind of grief at this time signs up for that group. We understand that grief is oftentimes an intermittent process or a lengthy process. So this is not intended only for those that are experiencing a new loss. This can be for anyone that is experiencing a profound loss that's affecting you on a day-to-day basis, even if the loss occurred some time ago. So if you have any questions about that grief support group that will be put on by hospice, please do see Sarah. This is the first of many support groups that we hope to get going through the Mental Health and Wellness Task Force. I also believe that at this point, you should have all seen the memos in your mailboxes and in your emails related to the physician that is able, the psychologist that is able to do one-on-one counseling at this point. We can recirculate that memo as well. But we are working to get those, different interventions to be available to residents. Incidentally, we do have and I'll just look at my calendar. We've got a presentation that the Mental Health and Wellness Task Force has facilitated. I believe it's tomorrow. Let's see. Yes, tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the PAC, which is Wednesday. You will want to maybe not miss this one. This is a woman named Amy Nitza. Her son, Trey Nitza, works in our dining room. Amy is going to be presenting to us on building resilience in challenging times, essentially. So it's going to focus on different tips and tools that individuals can implement in their lives to help build resiliency when you're faced with trauma, disruption, any kind of challenges. So it's very focused on mental health and well-being, but again, it's really focused on resiliency. So I think it's a positive message. I think there's a lot of things that all of us can learn from this. And so I hope all of you do choose to attend that in the PAC tomorrow at 3 p.m. The last thing that I just wanted to touch on today relates to the message that I put in the Chanticleer on Friday related to hospitals. I received a bunch of messages over the weekend from residents. Some were asking me if this was a scam. Some were reflecting on the fact that this is not my usual tone. Some were a little bit incredulous that I shared this information. So I would like to address that and first start by saying it's not a scam. And I realize that I typically try to soft pedal or be very judicious when I share information that may not be, on the forefront of positivity. But in this case, the language was strong because the issue is big. Not only did we go into that message last week with several incidents that had happened with residents of significant concern, but in addition, we then ended up having a weekend of continuing issues, extraordinarily lengthy stays for service at Vassar for relatively, certainly non-life-threatening things, but for things that probably should have been able to be attended to much more rapidly. We have seen a variety of incidents that are extremely concerning with Vassar. And I want to be very clear. I do not blame anyone at Vassar for this at all. This is bigger than Vassar. This is just the reality of healthcare today. Vassar is not the only hospital that's facing these challenges. But what is happening is residents and people from the public, particularly those that are perhaps experiencing COVID or symptoms of RSV, the virus I mentioned at the beginning, rather than dealing with things as one should, which is to take those things to the primary care physician or even to urgent care, are flooding into the emergency rooms. Some of that has to do with insurance, and there are other reasons. but the emergency rooms are overflowing and there simply is not enough emergency room staff. So when you have a scheduled procedure or you have some doctor's appointment or something at Vassar, that is not what I'm referring to. I'm referring strictly to emergency room access to Vassar. And it's not just Vassar, but Vassar right now is where we're hearing the biggest stories and the concerns, and where we are personally seeing really questionable residents are going to the hospital, barely being, fully evaluated, being sent back to Woodland Pond, only to have to go back to the hospital within days, and then eventually potentially being admitted to skilled nursing. That is something that happened in the last week. So rather than just being properly attended to the first time around, residents are being bounced back and forth with extensive emergency room stays in between. We have seen residents that have been placed into an observation status, which means not admitted to a room, attempted to send back to Woodland Pond to our health center, where we're protesting and saying, no, there's something wrong with this resident. We can't take them back yet. You need to care for this person. Hospital's giving us a hard time. Ultimately, resident ends up not only admitted, but in the ICU after they had wanted to send them back to us. It's just, you're going to need to advocate for yourself. If you decide to go to Vassar, particularly through the emergency room, you are going to have to be your own best advocate. It's challenging for us to be able to advocate for you. You or your loved one is going to have to do that in that emergency room if you choose to go there. I had a conversation this morning with the with the chief from the New Paltz Rescue Squad, so the ambulance company. As you have probably heard, they are facing significant staffing challenges. We've had 2 incidents in the last week where they had delayed response times, or even where another ambulance company had to come in their place because they were out on other calls. There is a significant issue in general with emergency medical care in our area. So, Matt, who's the chief at New Paltz Rescue Squad, and I really just both talked about how important it is for residents to be paying very close attention to your bodies and to your symptoms of illness. And as soon as you start to feel like you are sick, attending to those things through your primary care physician and or first care or another urgent care center. You're going to be much more likely to get the treatment that you need for a non-life-threatening illness or injury by contacting your primary care physician or going to an urgent care, or understanding that if you wait, let's say you haven't felt well for a few days, if it gets to the point that you need emergency care, if it's not a life-threatening issue, you're still going to be waiting in the emergency room, even if you go by ambulance. I can't emphasize that enough. Last night, we had a resident that was having stomach troubles. New Paltz Rescue Squad came to attend to the resident. They tried their hardest to convince the resident to not go to the hospital, rather to either follow up with their primary care physician or to, go to urgent care based on the symptoms that the resident was having. Because the New Paltz Rescue Squad knows the challenges that you are going to face if you go to Vassar right now for a non-life-threatening issue. They've indicated it's the same at most of the hospitals in the area. There are hospitals that are not quite as full, but the requirement of the rescue squad is that despite your wishes, they really have to bring you to the closest emergency room with technical availability. So even though rescue squad may feel that Vassar's too full to do a good job, if Vassar's telling them that they have room, they've got to take you. So it's really about understanding that you're going to have long wait times, especially if it's a non-life-threatening issue. What we might consider life-threatening is not what's being considered life-threatening all the time now. We don't know how long this issue is going to persist. I don't know if this is particularly bad right now because people are taking time off for the holidays and maybe the staff are ill. I don't know the reason for any of this. I do know that the people that are working at Vassar and all of the other hospitals are working very hard, as hard as they can, to care for the residents, but you are going to need to advocate for yourself and you're going to have to expect to wait a very, very long time. So please, if you have the ability to have your medical issues attended to by your primary care physician or at first care or another urgent care center, and they can adequately do that, that's what you should be thinking about doing. If you need guidance on this, please ask any nurse on our campus, or call me, or call Sarah, or call Philip. We will help you figure that out. So you're not in this alone. We will help you to navigate what the best decision for you might be based on your symptoms. So please keep us in the loop as to how you're feeling and when things are going on. We will help you try to navigate this. But most importantly, please note that you will be spending a long time if you go to the emergency room, if it's a non-life-threatening issue, and that you're going to need to advocate for yourself. You're going to have to really push the doctors to adequately, assess you. And if you feel like they're not doing something that they should, you've got to, really try to vocalize that. So if you've been having chest pains and they're not relenting, and maybe they do a chest x-ray, but the issue hasn't gone away, don't be shy to say the pain has not gone away. I know the chest x-ray was clear, but someone's got to help me. I'm still having this chest pain. You have to be prepared for that, whether it's Vassar or wherever you go. So in addition to the list that I provided to you in the Chanticleer on Friday, you also do have Ellenville Regional Hospital, which I had forgotten about, but they do an excellent job, and they're right over the ridge. And then Garnet Health in Orange County are some other regional hospitals. So again, this is not reflective of necessarily scheduled procedures. I don't want people to be fearful of that. This is really discussing the reality of what you can expect in urgent care, emergency care at this point in time. If you have any questions on that, any issues at all, please do contact me. And again, the tone of the Chanticleer was necessary because the issue is significant. I have a handful of stories that I could tell you that have happened just in the last week alone, where a resident has suffered either a short-term disadvantage or discomfort because of their trips to Vassar, or a longer-term issue that might have, lasting effects. I would not say anything if I was not significantly concerned. Our number one concern is for the residents' safety, and obviously healthcare and providing you healthcare access and care when you need it is critical to us. So yes, the tone was a little bit different than what I normally use, but it's important for you to understand the wait times are extremely long, and you're going to have to advocate for yourself. I am very confident that eventually, once you can get seen and see the right people, the care will be very good. And we've had residents that have experienced excellent care, but oftentimes in the lack of advocacy and lack of willing to wait, you are going to be sort of ushered out perhaps before your issues are attended to. And that's strictly a matter of resources. So again, please, if you can focus on, working through your primary care physicians, urgent care if you need to, but ask us any questions that you have, and we will help however we can. Thank you.